Here. Hey, good morning, Misfits. It is January 15th, 2020, 2020. And today's conversations continue on along the theme of questions and emotional questions. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of feedback yesterday. People enjoyed that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm taking one of my master classes, and I'm going to give you some of the information that I've used in my master classes before. This is a master class I taught in June of last year. And to give you an idea of, remember I said yesterday, there's a little bit more depth to some of the questions. I'm going to give you a little bit more of that. Can't give you all of it because it lets you loose in a china shop, and it sometimes does more challenges than it does goods. And I said goods, yes, because we want to do goods with our people. We want to do good things. We want to do good by them. So that being said, good morning. If you've sent out your 3 messages, type a D in the chat that you're done, that you did it or scheduled it, right? Because doing that, we heard Michael say yesterday how that changed the way he heard this whole thing. How he heard the whole conversation, how he was actually present for himself there. So let's see here. Let me go ahead and switch over to the slides. Where are the slides at? There they are. Is this it? Is that master class? Yep, master class. And I'm actually going to move this so I'm not staring away from the camera so much. Let me move this. Go to the back screen. Is that right? Okay, wow. There's 45 people on the call, and I've seen only 1, 2, 3, 4 Ds. I'd encourage more of you to send out your messages. It's a fun thing. It's a fun thing. You're doing it, Fanny. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so share screen. Here we go. And Ray, give me a head nod if you can see that screen. Awesome. Thanks, brother. Gaining influence using emotional questions. Now, this is information pulled from a masterclass I did back in June 2019. They're partial slides for the Misfit call today. Are you asking the right ones? This is session 5 about mass engagement. How do we get people to engage from our questions and not disengage, not, as Brene Brown say, turn them from guilt into shame, because shame is what causes us to have issues. Guilt is what causes us to get into action. So we don't want to use questions that wind up putting people into shame, right? Sometimes, how many of us have ever felt bad asking questions? Felt bad asking for help, felt bad asking for things. Well, how could we feel bad asking for help, asking for questions? Because we're asking the questions so we can get some help. But yet sometimes we feel embarrassed, we feel ashamed to ask for questions. Sometimes we ask questions that are difficult to our prospects as well. So let's go here. Next slide. The only real, so this was from Brian Tracy, because we all know Brian Tracy is this amazing sales trainer. And we need to understand that we are in sales. We are in sales, and if you don't think you're in sales, I got some news for you. Well, I don't like to sell anything. Well, you just tried to sell me on selling me that you don't like to sell anything. So the only real creators of wealth in this society are businesses. Every one of you is your own small business, your own entrepreneurship. You need to be in sales. You are in sales. Salespeople are the most vital people in any business. Without sales, the biggest and most sophisticated companies shut down. My daddy always said, everything can be solved with sales. Challenges at home. Challenges at home are usually, they say the average family has a divorce because $400 a month difference would absolutely change the trajectory of a family. That number's probably gotten a little bit lower even because of how tight everybody lives. So what if you were just going out to have conversations with people about $300 instead of $30,000 a month or $3,000 a month? There's a point at which it becomes unbelievable. If you understand where you're asking that person from, All right, if you were to ask that person where they're at in life, many of them can't believe the income that maybe even you're making part-time. Well, how could they not adjust their mind to just an extra? I make $200 a month extra. I make $5,000 a month extra. Sometimes they can't wrap their heads around it. They can't wrap their arms around it. They say they can, but at a subconscious level, you're going to see here that questions land in 5 areas of the body. The body. What is an emotional question? It's a loaded question. One ripe with assumptions and the ability to unravel someone's deepest desires, vulnerabilities, and emotional baggage. It's a question that implies something about its listener. So there's things that I could say to y'all. There's a group of individuals on here who I could speak to a demographic, the young folks. I could say, hey, listen, you young folks don't understand what it's like to bleed, blah, blah, blah. That's an assumption that I understand what your life is like. Oh, you guys have it so much easier with the information age. You guys have access to so much more information. That's an assumption. If you look back at your questions that you've used in your prospecting, how many of those questions have actually made assumptions about the listener, presumes you know something, some aspect of the person's being, their personality and their preferences? Now, some of you have heard me make some wild assumptions when I'm having a conversation with somebody. Like I asked somebody the other day when they were speaking. She has this amazing, beautiful voice, and I asked her a simple question: would you say you're taller than average? She goes, she kind of giggles and goes, yeah. There's certain things you can hear about people when you have a conversation with them. So emotional questions create resistance. Listen carefully. Emotional questions create resistance. Here's the other thing my daddy taught me. If you're going to create resistance, and that's what any sale does, it creates a resistance, right? 2 things you want to do: be a professional salesman. Sell them only the thing they want, that they need in their life, that they want to buy in their life right now. Sometimes people only want to buy the appointment you're on. Sometimes they only want to buy the information you're on. You think because they bought that, they should buy the rest of it. Sometimes they buy their success one meeting at a time. So the question is does your dialogue grease the slides of the sale? Or does your dialogue add to the resistance of the sale? When we are left to our own devices, we look for ways to avoid our negative emotions, and we devise strategies to bring relief in that moment. So this is what happens when a prospect hears your question. Sometimes we even say those 2 words that end every argument. You're right. Nobody's answered the question. Nobody's finished the conversation. The argument isn't over, but we find a way to bring relief in the moment. This is what objections do. Objections, when people are giving you objections, because at that moment, they need to find a way to get back onto the right side of the conversation. They need to get back into a little bit of authority. That's what an objection is. You're not hearing me. I'm not being heard. For some reason, you want to push me down the steps, and an objection shows up. It's resistance. It's resistance. You're pushing on buttons. You're touching on points. The question is do you have the grease? Do you have the fire foam to put that pain out? Do you have it so that they can sit with it for the rest of the conversation? Can you have a dialogue that allows them to sit in that resistance, but realize that that resistance is what they really need to pay attention to? What's that thing we say in life? What you resist persists. You're having a conversation with them to help them have more, do more, be more, and all of a sudden you ask them a question that says, aha, you're not having more, being more, doing more. And they go, you're right, dang it. So how do we calm this? How do we look for this relief in the moment? We turn to things like drugs, drinking, sex, work, false personas, TV, overeating. How many of us have ever been mad and we've gotten a half-gallon of ice cream? Or we went through Whataburger and didn't get a single, we got a double. And we were just frustrated. We were just agitated. How many of us have ever tried to, what's that phrase, cut off our nose to spite our face? Oh, I'm not going to go to that meeting. I'm not going to go to the meeting. I'm not good enough. I've just no, because I said I'd be at the next rank. No, I'm not going to go. I got to give the cat a bath. These are emotional questions that are happening to you. Something or someone convinced us that the pain of facing our emotions is something we can't deal with. Listen, I know if you're on this call, many of you have this amazing heart that you want to be able to help and serve people. There's not a single one of you, at least that's my perception, that's my belief, there's not a single one of you that would ever want to say, I'm doing this business so I can hurt people. But isn't it true that sometimes, because maybe we're not sure what we're doing, or maybe we didn't know what we were doing, some people got hurt? Somebody told the story wrong. Somebody heard the story wrong. How many times have you ever asked your kids, if you've got kids, well, what did I tell you? And they tell you what they think you said. And you're like, who are you talking to? I didn't say that. Right? The telephone game. They thought they heard what I thought I heard what you were thinking. I wasn't listening to what you were saying. Some of us are holding back, repressing these emotions, and it can cause physical exhaustion in our bodies. How many of us, during the course of a day, we may not have the most physical job in the world, but by the time we get home, we are exhausted? That's the emotional energy. Do you realize that your brain uses 20% of your body's energy? 20%? What's it doing? Can you tell me what your brain's doing? Is it up there like you see in those memes with weights and it's flexing its muscles all day long? Well, when the muscle gets stronger by building up stories, by being able to retain stories, by reliving stories. Sometimes at the 70,000 thoughts a day, they say we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. How about this one? 90% of them, 90% of them are repeats from yesterday. You know how hard it is to stand in this world today and say, today I am a champion. Today I am this. Today I am that. And the old story's up there going, oh, no, you ain't. No, you ain't. No, you ain't. It's why what Noah St. John in Afformations, it's about the ability to ask a question. You're going to see some amazing things. How many of you realize, so how do people hear questions? I'm just curious in the chat. How do people hear questions? I know some of you may say, well, they hear it in their ears. They do. But do you realize that, yeah, absolutely, Latoya. I'm just looking at the chats. Oh, Brittany, that's okay. It's misspelled with love, and it's not misspelled because that's been a number. it's been a way I've seen it spelled for years. So Carlos, so we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Out of those 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, every single day that the brain has, that's a number. It's busy every second of every day, even when you're sleeping, right? What science proves is that 90% of what we think about in our conscious mind, Joe Dispenza says about 5% of your brain's ability interpret your entire world. I've heard the number as low as 2%. So 2 to 5% of your brain's capacity, ability, interpret your entire world. So everything you see today that's new, everything you see today that's different, everything that you see today, it only takes 5% of your brain. Listening to me right now, where I'm only pulling 5% of your brain's energy. The other 95% is doing everything from yesterday. The autonomic nervous system, the heartbeats, the regulations, all of the dopamine that's being, all of that stuff. So 90% of the stories that you're going to hear today in your head are from yesterday. And if you're trying to do something today you've never done before, to feel a way you've never felt before, the old stories are keeping you stuck. So the understanding the 5 areas of questions. So there we are in the middle. So imagine if you ever been in a conversation where there are 5 people talking to you at the same time. How crazy would it be if 5 people were talking to you at the same time, and the one that you really needed to listen to is this quiet little voice. Yeah, but Sean, hey, Sean. The 5 areas that a question lands in science shows, is neurological. See, listen carefully. What I'm saying to you, there's not a single message, there's not a single sound of my voice, there's not a single sound of my words getting into your head. Nothing I say goes any farther than your inner ear canal, into the drum, into the vibration. And so because then your eardrum vibrates and it's turning everything I'm saying into a feeling, into what you understand as the English language. It's turning those vibrations in that you can understand. You've been able to comprehend that this vibration means this word. And then all of a sudden your brain acts accordingly. Neurologically, it says this is not a fight or flight moment. The brain looks for two things. Will it kill me? How fast can I recognize the pattern? This is why when you start to say nomenclature, things in your compensation plan. If I say compensation plan to you and you're an employee, what's the only thing you can think of? How you get paid. The fact that you're talking about your compensation plan and you're talking about it in your business, nobody can understand that. It just can't. They can't understand the fact that you are having a conversation about a compensation plan that's so much better than theirs. If they've been an employee all their life, it's going to be very hard for them to understand that your compensation plan pays for you to talk. They've never been paid as a public speaker because that's the only thing they can think of that gets paid to talk. Follow me? This is going to be, this is, like I say, this comes out of my master class. So if this is a little, it seems like, wow, I thought we were on the launch pad. We just took off, we're headed to Mars. Yeah, this is to show you the depth, why questions are so extraordinarily valuable. Questions, when you learn them, are like being a ninja of success, a ninja of support. It absolutely helps them, cradles them as they step into these new journeys. It gives them faith to be more, do more, have more. So that's just a small part of the neurological. We go way into the neurological on this. We go way into all of these areas. The next one is biological. How many of you have ever been told by your parents, oh my God, you're just like your mother, you're just like your father, you're just like your grandma, you're just like Nana, Meemaw. And if you've ever been told that you're just like somebody else, that's the biological that transfers down from your family. Let me ask you this. Do you look like your parents? If you look like them, is there any chance that you might sound like them? Have you picked up any colloquialisms that make you sound familiar to your family? Then that's all biological. When you hear these questions, it challenges everything that has made you. How many of us have ever heard somebody say, well, yeah, but we don't do that. We don't do things like that. Who's we? Well, our culture, our race, our religion. You need to follow the path. You need to do this, this, and this. You're stepping outside of the box way too far. That's the biological. Could you imagine sitting there, having a conversation with somebody? Imagine if you're the first one to go to college, and we talked about this the other day. You're the first one to go to college in your family's history, and you're sitting across the table from somebody who yet has somebody to go to college for the very first time. They were supposed to be the ones. They were supposed to be the ones, but they fell short. And you're talking to them when they're 50. And do you think that haunts them? Do you think that sits in their soul, that they were the one that could have been the one that broke the chain? They were the first ones to get divorced in their family. That's probably a very rare case anymore. But imagine if they were the first ones and it wasn't the best thing to happen in their life. Do you think anytime they have a conversation, that idea, that concept of failure shows up? This is why it's so powerful when you learn to adjust the language, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. When you have that change in the language, that you can actually inspire them to answer the question versus their walls to show up. Then there's the chemical side to a question. What? How many of you, listen, I need you to, if this has ever happened, how many times has anybody ever asked you a question and you got mad? Just type an M in the chat if you've ever gotten mad when somebody asked you a question. I'm talking about, let's go back to when you were a kid and your mom, your dad, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle. Look at that. How could vibration coming out of my cake hole ask you a question that gets you mad? How many times did you get mad and you think you did a good job and they never saw it? What are the chances are your questions, and when you prospect, the questions you ask when you prospect, you're making them mad as a hornet. They are looking for something to sting. They're looking for someone to sting. And you know how they sting you? Is they come up with objections. Oh, is this one of those things? Ow! You just stung me. Yeah. Is this one of those MLM things? That's because you stung them. And they want to bite back. Well, I didn't even say anything. It's not about what you said. That's why why do you get so defensive when they ask you, is it one of those things? They're asking you, they're putting words in a sentence in a simple syntax that says they put it in such an order that it gets you mad. Oh, I get so frustrated when people ask me, is it one of those things? Is it a pyramid scheme? Why do I get so mad? Why do you get so mad? You got to ask yourself, who's the goofy one? You follow me? Who's the goofy one? If you get mad, really? How sure are you of what you're doing? Don't you have a picture that of where your kids look good? What? It's just a sentence. How do you take it? How do you take ownership of it? So that's the chemical side to a question. How many times do we in a public situation, in an environmental situation, meaning we're around people at work, we come home and we go, oh, you wouldn't believe my day at work. Do you realize that you have a job? Do you realize that you are going to create income today? How could you ever come home and go, oh, what a miserable day at work? Why don't you come home full of joy? Because you go to work without the joy. That's the chemical side to this. You haven't even gotten to work yet. Somebody cuts you off, and you've already given them the riot act, and you bring that riot act right into work. And because it's not what you say, it's how you respond to what's said to you. You weren't mad before, but all of a sudden somebody cuts you off, says something, you see an ad, you see some political ad, you see something that pushes your buttons. It's not the button that you get mad at, it's the way you respond to your button being pushed. Then there's the genetic. This goes back to culturally. This goes back to how you were raised. We were having this conversation last night. I was going over what I was going to talk about this morning. I was talking to Michelle and Mason about it last night. And that's why we said, you're just like your papa. You've got generations of Christians and Murphys in you and everything else. And that's your makeup, good, bad, or indifferent. But that's the genetic side of it. That's the biological side of it. And then this one's not going to make anybody happy. Hormonal. I think is that how you spell hormonal? No, there must be a E in there maybe. Anyway, so that's hormonal. But the thing is that it's hormonal. How many of us have ever had a bad day because we weren't feeling good? We were sick and we just didn't want to be agitated. We set ourselves up for a particular moment. Here's my point. All of this is happening every time you ask a question, every time I have a conversation with you, every time we have a dialogue. So do me a favor real quick. I want everybody to just smile. Smile as big as you can right where you're at. Just smile as big as you can. And then maybe give it a little chuckle. give a little bigger chuckle. Do you realize through mirror neurons, all of the place that you were just at, we left on the launch pad. When you giggle, when you have a smile in life, when you take off the pressure, laughter is the way to relieve the pressure. How many of us have ever used a pressure cooker, right? And the pressure builds up to that little thing, that little jiggly thing on top starts going, right? And we can't take it off too much. And sometimes the thing is designed to where it's a 5 pounds of pressure, 10 pounds of pressure, 15 pounds of pressure. How many of you would say that the house that you live in is pretty strong? The house you live in is pretty strong, pretty sturdy. Do you realize that 5 pounds of pressure, just 5 pounds of pressure, would blow out every window in your house, possibly even a wall? 5 pounds of pressure inside your house. Your tires are to 35 pounds. Your tires are up to 35 pounds. The reason I know that is because I used to work in nuclear facilities. And the reactor on the dome, the building that's built around a reactor, has to be able to withstand 55 pounds of pressure. I know that's like, what the heck are we even talking about then? My point is how much pressure do you put your prospect under? How much pressure are they already under from every bit of conversation, every second of life that they've just lived, up until the moment that you sit down across the table from them and you're going to be their savior? You're going to say, this would be so good for you. That'd be like me telling you, y'all need to be reading the good book every morning. This would be so good for you. Yes, it would be, but why don't you be the dang example? Okay, I probably should be the example. How many of us love to be told what to do when somebody else ain't doing it? It's not a good thing. Doesn't make us feel good. How many of you are telling people what to do and you're not quite doing it? How many of you have told your team, you should be journaling? Did you journal last night? Did you journal this morning? You should be talking to more people. Did you talk to more people last night? Did you? You follow me? There's this thing about being incongruent. And when you're incongruent, you're not in your own track. You're not in your own lane. It comes across. If a question lands in all 5 of these areas, neurological, biological, chemical, genetic, hormonal, let me ask you this. How many of you have ever heard anybody explain questions in this manner? If you've heard questions, if you've not heard it in this manner, type a 2. If you've not heard anybody explain the depth of asking a single question. When people give you a script, do they tell you this is what happens? And you wonder why you got the script down pat and it ain't working. Because they gave you the tip of the iceberg and they're not telling you what's plowing people over left and right. See the power of questions? If you just get good at questions, you don't really need to know your compensation plan. How many of you have ever just made a presentation based on your comp plan? Just that's it. You said, listen, I need to show you something. And you showed them that your comp plan. And did anybody go, I'm in? Oh my gosh, that's what I've been looking for. If your comp plan is so good, wouldn't you just need to show them that? If your company says we have the greatest comp plan in the industry, we've put people who have over 200 years of experience all together in the room. They came up with the greatest comp plan in the history of network marketing. Why don't people sign up because of that? Because nobody understands the damn thing. They only can understand what they want to listen to. How many of you have ever been selective listening? How many of your parents were selective listening when you were growing up? How many of you parents have become selective listeners? So neurological, instinctive elaboration. Do you understand what that is? I'm going to explain it to you. But think about what that is. Instinctive elaboration. Instinctive, so instinct, and elaboration, expanding on something. You realize that the brain of the person listening, this is what happens when we ask a simple question like, what color is your car? How many of you just thought of your car? How many of you thought of the color of your car? See, when you ask the question, the brain becomes myopic. It becomes so strategically focused on answering the question that was posed to it. It can only answer one question at a time. You may be able to answer multiple questions in a row, but it can only ever do anything one at a time. So therefore, when you ask a question that people may not understand, if you ask them a question, Any question you ask them is something that's going to happen neurologically, is something called instinctive elaboration. And we force them to not hear the rest of the conversation. Sometimes we ask questions. Sometimes we make questioning statements, and we don't give them a chance to answer it. So therefore, they got to keep going back to that initial question. How many times have we ever been in a conversation, and being in that conversation, somebody goes, "Wait a minute, I got a question," and they're asking you a question from about 4 minutes ago? If anybody's ever been in a situation where somebody's asked you a question from previous, type a P in the chat. Type a P in the chat. If you're ever going along and somebody asks a question, they go, "Wait a minute, what about?" And you're like, in your head, you're going, "Wait a minute, that was like 5 minutes ago. What the hell's going on here?" It's because you never gave their instinctive elaboration a chance to elaborate. The thing that you can do is what we're doing right now. Slowing down. A little bit of silence. A little pause. So for some of you, this 3-second pause is an eternity. Oh my gosh, there's silence. Oh my God. Oh. Listen, you're feeding them a fire hose. You got to give them a chance to chew and swallow. We're not in the man versus food eating contest here. How fast can you get crap down their throat of information, of dialogue, of conversation? I pitched it. I pitched it. This would be so good for them. I don't know why they didn't get it. You know why they didn't get it? Because you suck at it. Ooh, that was an emotional slap. Well, it's true. You were trying to have them get it. Well, who wants to get anything? Why don't we give what they want? They don't get it. Well, they don't get it. Of course they don't get it. Who wants to get what you got? They want to get what they want. I'd let that sink in for a second. Who wants to get what you got? They don't. They can't. They're not you. This mental reflex takes over the brain's thought process, and when it's thinking about the answer to the question, it can't contemplate anything else. This is the same thing that happens. This is what happens. A dear friend of mine, Jenna Apgar, who's the founder of Warfare Marketing, she says, this is no different than and she's this blonde, military, beautiful female, and I say military because she's tough. She's tough as nails. But you wouldn't know it till you had a conversation with her. But this would be like me walking into a bar, walking up to her and saying, "Hey, you want to go home and have some kids?" What? You're having conversations with people when you're saying you should be doing this, you should be getting healthy, you should be walking, you should be trading, you should be jumping out of a plane is what they're saying, without a parachute. That's what you should be doing. Don't tell me what I should be doing. Stop shooting all over me. You trigger these emotions. If you look at my Facebook page, what am I selling? If you look at my Instagram, what am I selling? I'm selling this. There's a big push on getting your butt to this call. That's what I'm selling. Well, we don't see pictures of you like, when you all decked out and everything. Well, I'm not selling that. Where I can find that. There it is. And got you. So, is this making sense? Are you starting to see questions a little bit different? If you're starting to see questions a little bit different, type of Q. So, why do I ask you to put a question mark in there, to type a Q in there? It gives you a chance to respond to a question. Now, there's 107 people on here this morning. There's not 107 Qs, I can tell you that. I'm watching the numbers count out. Why? Because some people are too cool for school. Now, maybe you're driving. I get it. But I'm thinking many of you, yes, and that's right, Latoya, don't you worry. I see you driving. My point is this. Here's the other challenge that's hard with reaching success. Jim Rohn would say, what's Jim Rohn say? That's a clue. Jim Rohn would say, that's a clue. When people don't do what you ask them to do, you have no influence over them. Because the influence they decide to follow, the influence they decide to keep up with, is the one that's called them. And guess what? Congratulations, where you're at, it's your fault. Good, bad, or indifferent. Congratulations, where you're at, it is your fault. So then the question becomes, if you want to do more, if you want to have more, don't you have to do something different? Don't you have to feel a little uncomfortable? The kinetic energy, the kinesiology that you use when you participate with questions. And listen, it's okay whether you answer or not. Not my problem. I'm only sharing it because when you see prospects who are not responding to you, that's a clue. We're not going to save everybody. Sometimes your best presentations are practices. They're not performances. Then there's the mere measurement effect. This is all still in the neurological. There's still 4 more areas. Simply asking someone if they're going to purchase a car within 6 months increased their purchase rates by 35%. Do you realize that if you answer a question, ask them a question that triggers the negative impact of them not succeeding, they have a, in this example, a 35% chance of just staying stuck where they're at. And that number gets even higher. This was a study done over 40,000 participants. Simply asking them, hey, listen, are you going to buy a car in the next 6 months? That group of people had an increase of 35% in purchases over another group that wasn't asked the question. So do your questions that you leave your prospect with, the mere measurement effect, do your questions, does your presentation leave them with a 35% increase, a 35% chance of coming back to you? Do you understand why it would be valuable to follow up if you're good at asking questions as you get better at asking questions every day? How many of you have ever had somebody on your social media reach out to you and finally say, hey, listen, I've been following you. It's time for me to get started. I need to do what you're doing. If you've ever had somebody do that, that's because the way you presented yourself allowed them to follow up and say, I got to get going. I got to do something different and reach out to you. Reach out to a stranger possibly. If it's a friend, it's even better. But sometimes it's a stranger. They reach out to you and say, I got to do something different. So let's go. Oh, and this is out of any of you ever hear of Fast Company? This was research done by Fast Company. So these aren't numbers I pull out of my ear or other places. This is from companies, reputable companies who are doing this research. Why do questions have such influence? So this must be from the master class. Prompting the brain to contemplate a particular behavior. So what we want to do is when we ask our questions, do your questions lead them down the path to where you want? And so this is out of the master class, so this is all blocked out. Oh, the bottom one is fMRIs show the increase in neural activities in areas associated. So if you ask good questions, it's the same thing as giving them crack cocaine. It activates the reward and pleasure centers. They can't differentiate the difference between somebody taking a drug that activates the reward and pleasure system or a good question. Isn't that crazy? Every action a person makes is motivated. See, I can't even spell. Is motivated by improvement. We buy because we believe it will enhance our lives. Here's the challenge. How many of you believe that people see the value in your product? Listen carefully. They see the value in your product and they still say no. You know why they still say no? Because they haven't bought the fact that they can enhance their own lives. They look, what's that thing I say when somebody asks me a question? I usually respond with, hey, listen, are you looking, I got to ask you a simple question. Are you looking for a reason to do this or an excuse not to? Because if you're looking for an excuse not to, use my shirt. You don't like Lucky Brand, use my shirt. That's as good as any excuse. Save us some time. If your product works, if your compensation plan works, if your service works, if your product works, if whatever it is your work, if your team works, if your management team works, if all of the things about you and your company and your business model work, and they say no, we haven't asked the questions that would allow them to buy their own future. Follow me on that? Remember, I asked, I've said, so let me ask you, how long is it okay, how long do you feel okay owning that story you currently have? Because if you're not looking to buy something new, to swap that out, to go trade that story in, and that's a huge thing to do. That's like trading in your favorite car, selling your house when you weren't expecting to. That's a big issue. How long do you want to own your current story? That's really all I'm here for. And if I can't help you buy your new story, maybe I can point you in the direction of some of my friends who can. I may not be the right choice for you, but I want to find out if you want to make the right decision. I may not be the right choice for you, but I want to find out if you want to make the right decision for you. Anybody ever ask you that question? Do you hear the power behind that question? Do you hear how it allows you to be in total control and yet have to make a decision? Decision means to cut off, incision means to cut in. Are you ready to cut off the old story? Are you ready to move forward and start to put a new story in there, piece by piece, little chunk by little chunk? We don't have to swap it out carte blanche all at once, but are you willing to advance your story in such a way that in 30 days and 6 months, you've got a new story to tell, the story you've been wanting to tell? Are you okay telling the new story you go to bed dreaming about? That's a lot different than, do you make as much money as you want? Do you have enough free time as you want? Biological, how it affects us. So here's the thing. Active questioning. I love this. And you guys know I love the Stoics. So Socrates is well known for using questions to probe the validity of an assumption, analyzing the logic of an argument, and explore the unknown. Using questions to probe the validity. See, what if you knew, how many of you, so let me ask you this, how many of you know sometimes the conversations, the words the prospect is feeding back to you, how many times do you know that it's an untrue story? They're telling you a fib. If you believe that you've ever been told a fib by your prospect, type an F in the chat. If you've ever been told a fib. So then what we have to do is we can't go, that's a lie, don't be an idiot. You're lying to me. We can't say that, but sometimes our response says that. Sometimes the expression on our face says that. So what if you learned how to use questioning to probe the validity of it? See, that's when I say, that's when I might say something. And listen, I'm a beginner at this. I've only been doing it for 30 years. I'm still trying to figure it out. I've been in the study of the human brain for the last 20 years. I've been in sales since I'm 4. This year I'll be 50 years in sales. I was selling corn off a hay wagon when I was 4 years old, down at the end of the driveway. So what if when they say something, you go, man, that's an amazing, I've heard that response before. You want to know who I've heard it from? Some of our top leaders. I've heard that response before when some of our top income earners in our business, my business partners, have shared their story. That's just a very similar story. Can you tell me more about that? What did I do when I related them, when I compared them to some of the biggest income earners in our profession, in your business? Oh, it's okay for me to have this opinion because maybe I can get over it as well. Maybe I can get through it as well. This is a good place to start. There's an old Irish joke that they talk about, which I actually have experienced every time I go to Ireland. But you ask somebody questions. I was in Kinsale, and I was trying to get to the golf course called Old Head. It's this amazing golf course. And I said, excuse me, can you tell? And we were close. We were close. Didn't have GPS at the time. We were close. And I asked this guy, I said, excuse me, sir, could you tell me how to get which direction to Old Head? He goes, oh, pull over here. You know you're in trouble when somebody says pull over. He says, well, I'll start off with the old Irish favorites. If I were you, I wouldn't start here, Sean. You can't get there from here. It's like, well, where the hell should we start from if we can't get there from here? That's the point. sometimes people think they can't get to where they want to get from where they're starting. That's the only place they can get there from. Just the thought of something can cause reactions in the body due to chemical changes from thought. Triggers in memory, activates the hippocampi, meaning the hippocampus, and forces us to look at the past to answer the present moment. And it's almost impossible to answer the moment depending upon the level of emotion triggered. How many of you have ever walked out of a situation and said, I just can't think right now. I can't, I need space. You know how many times we've done that to our prospects and they've never been able to leave the chair? My mom was right. My wife was right. My husband was right. They said I couldn't do this. They said because of my color, I can't do this. I shouldn't be successful. Our people don't do that. Our religion doesn't do that. The people from our block don't do that. One day. Love you. Oh, is that today? Yes, it is. Okay. 8:30, Dr. Payne. Awesome. Go get my eyes checked. I love Dr. Payne. He loves when I come in. Triggers memory, activate. Okay. Sometimes we're triggered by our own family history of success and failure. Let's see here next. Avoiding the stall mines. Yeah. We call them landmines. No, not in our profession. They're called stall mines. We cause them to stall. We cause them to put the brakes on. How many times did we feel a presentation was going absolutely brilliant? We go, oh my gosh, they're in. I should probably just give them the application right now. They're in. And then all of a sudden something takes that hard left, like Bugs Bunny. I should have taken a left at Albuquerque. In your past, you can recall when you were excited about things, about taking back some control over your financial journey. And remember, no is a perfect good answer. So here's how you avoid the stall mines. You ready to get started? Listen, if no is not an answer, if no is not a possible answer, your yes will never stick. I don't know if you guys have been on some of my calls where I do the 3 yeses that kill your business: the counterfeit yes, the confirmation yes, there's the commitment, and then there's just the horrible where they absolutely lying to your face yes. But there's the counterfeit, the commitment, and then there's the confirmation yes. Where sometimes we hear the counterfeit and the confirmation, the confirmation yes. We hear them and we think it's the commitment yes, and it's not, and we get disappointed in our business. So you got to give them a chance to say no. In the past, can you recall when you were excited about taking back some control over your financial future, your financial journey? And remember, no is a perfectly good answer because maybe they never thought about being in charge, having their own business. Have folks ever referred to you as the outlier, the rebel, the one who challenges the status quo? These aren't manipulating. They're asking a question in a better way that makes it easier for them to give me a positive response. So I see Brittany type that in. How many people have ever said, just send me the website? Yeah, I'm in. Just send me the website. That's a commitment, yes. You hear, yes, oh man, I send them the website. They said they're coming to the meeting and they never show up. Yeah, that's a challenge. Allowing a success story, evolutionary process, old emotions that play a role in survival, love of family, aggression, fear, anxiety, evolutionary responses, the way that you respond. Avoiding the fight, flight, or freeze responses, dealing with chronic stress the majority of individuals deal with on a daily basis. Do you think people are stressed in their work and their job? Have you ever wondered if your presentation allowed them to upgrade the historical genealogy? What? Think about that. If you've ever been one of the first people in your if you've ever been one of those people who were the first to do anything in your family, to go to university, to graduate university, to get a degree, some of you are the first. And if you're the first, if you've ever been the first in your family to do something that nobody else has ever done, would it be fair to say that there's a little pressure, there was some pressure on you, there was a tremendous amount of excitement? Then once you achieved it, don't you feel that the people actually wanted you to stay doing it? And maybe you had made that addiction to approval. It wasn't even a career you wanted. Have you ever thought that being first, right? you know, here's the challenge. I don't know if you if you've done any study on it, but when the guys come back from the moon, back when we were sending people to the moon, these guys would come back and some of them would turn into alcoholics, raging alcoholics. They would get divorces from their families. They had this perfect astronaut life, and then all of a sudden it was hell in a handbasket. You know why? Because they stepped on the moon. If any of you watch Big Bang Theory, Howard Wolowitz, how much he became this funny goofball, how many times he threw it in everybody's, well, yeah, but I was to the moon. The reason that these guys, their life kind of went into shambles when they came back is because they landed on the moon. How many people in the world have landed on the moon? That's a pretty big thing, but especially once you get into that state, because now it's a whole new story. What happens? How many times have you in your family been the one who's landed on the moon? How many times are you asking the prospect you're having a conversation with to come with you and land on the moon? I'm not saying to stop what you're doing. What I am saying is to stop and look at what you're doing and see if it's producing the results you would like, and see if it's producing the results that they would like. When you marry those two desires, what do you want your prospect to do when they sit down with you? You want them to get started? Sometimes it takes people longer to get started. But the question is are they always on the start path? There's a couple more slides here, but I'm just going to see what else. Hormones, all of that. Let's see. Chemical reactions, anxiety, avoiding the addict. The key to productive conversation is to avoid the sounding of the amygdala and the cascading effect once the event starts. It's our addiction to approval sensors. We reviewed on how to assess and how our interpersonal expression to assess the seriousness of the current. Remember, there's 6 areas that can be triggered, so tread lightly. Using the training from session 2, engaging questions. So I'm going to leave you with this: engaging questions. See how this works for you. If you had so what if you said to somebody, if you had a business that was simple to explain, could be demonstrated in under 5 minutes, and the customer could have a powerful, predictable results in less than a week, would you feel comfortable that you could be successful? If you had a solid grasp of technology and saw how you could easily leverage financial trends for yourself, that would financial for self, what would you do with something like that? I guess I had some people in the technology business back in June in my classes. Would you say that you lean more towards staying where you are and stay where you are and growing based on others judging your success? Or might you lean towards doing something part-time that would allow you to gain on your financial goals without affecting what you're currently doing? So Gisela, remember, Gisela, what are the 3 questions that I ask everybody who come on to ask me questions if I haven't talked with them before? What are the 3 questions?
Yeah, the permission to help. Are we going to make them uncomfortable? Get them back to the good feeling. So you say to rephrase those questions when they're getting there.
So what happens is that when anxiety shows up, all too often they forget that they gave me permission to make them anxious. So I would say something if I could feel your anxiousness arising. Gisela, do you remember question number 2 when we got and I kind of giggle like that? Do you remember what question number 2? Remember that you said it was okay to make you feel uncomfortable? I guess this.
Yeah, it's okay to make you uncomfortable. Yeah.
Well, no, it's not okay. I said you gave me permission.
It is okay.
I always put that word permission in there because that question is designed as a surgical instrument to allow me to have a conversation with you to help you take it to advance to the next step because you offered it. Now I can't throw it in your face going, well, you told me I could piss you off. So I say, Gisela, listen, remember question number 2? You gave me permission to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. I'd say we've stepped into that, wouldn't you? Yes. Do you remember question number 3? Do I have your permission to take you out of that uncomfortable feeling? Would it be okay to know that we're going to get close to it very soon? That makes sense? So that's the conversation I would have. So there you go, folks. Share. Now, again, that's slide 16 of I think this presentation has 100 slides in it. There we go. What'd you learn? What'd you like, folks? Type it in the chat. What'd you learn? What'd you like? And if you've got a question, go ahead and raise your hand. Raise your hand, and I'll call on you. And we'll have a couple of questions here. Good morning, Mia. We've got Mia on line 1.
Good morning. How are you?
Outstanding. How can I be a service?
I liked a lot about this call, and the thing that I really like about today's call is about how it gets into deeper analysis on what questions can really do. You know, like if you're asking someone or if they're asking you and how to answer, and I think that's very important. So it gives me a lot of insight on how to better ask questions, how to better answer and stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mia. And here's the thing. This doesn't have to be with just your prospects. Remember, I'm doing my best to try to teach you about how to live life a little bit better, how to enjoy being around other people better, how to get upgrades on airlines, how to get front row seats to events that are sold out, how to get a better interest rate on your loans and your mortgages, how to get appointments with your doctor when there's absolutely no room, how to listen. The doctor this morning is coming in specifically for me, my eye doctor. He doesn't open up on is today Wednesday? They don't open they don't open till 1 today. Why is he coming in at 8:30? Because I asked him to.
Wow.
Why would he? Because he has fun. He laughs his butt off with me. Because he's Chinese, and so I just poke at him and have fun with him, and we laugh, and he just thinks I'm the goofiest guy on the planet. So he's going to come in specifically to take care of me 4 hours before he normally opens.
That's awesome.
Yes, it is. It is. But that's normal for me because I've decided to make life better for me and for those around me. This isn't a one-way street. Thanks, Mia, for your questions. Thanks for your comments. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing. Let's go to Nano on line 1. The reason for many of you to be here. Thank you, Nano, for all you do for the world.
Thank you, Sean. I'm grateful for you, brother. How you doing this morning?
Outstanding.
Outstanding. That's what I like to hear, man. I have 2 questions for sure. I wanted to ask you about what you said earlier in the conversation about the 60 to 70,000 thoughts and how 90% of them are from yesterday. I wanted to know how we can lower that percentage. What's a good way? What are some things we could do throughout the day to start our day to lower the percentage of the thoughts we have from yesterday so we could always be thinking forward?
So let me explain. Let me share it with you this way. This might be might help it to be understand. If our memory is our mind, it's the allocation and it's the accumulation of everything that's ever happened to us is our memory. When people say you've lost your mind, it's you've started to operate in a different way than you normally operate based upon how they remember you. So if our life is built up of our memory, listen carefully, and our future is built up of our predictable future, because how do most people operate? They operate in this moment based upon their past history. Right now, most of you are having conversations in your mind about things you've learned, people you've heard before. This is just like so-and-so. This is just like so-and-so. I've heard this before. Ooh, I've never heard that, but that reminds me, I've heard kind of a version of it. So even as I was giving a presentation that none of you have ever heard before because none of you were part of my master class in June, and that's the last time I did this presentation, all of this information was new to you, yet the only reason you could understand it is because there was a part of your history that allowed you to be able to comprehend this. So there's a memory that was triggered that allowed you to listen to this, but it took you, the only place you could listen to it was from a memory or a memorable conversation. Then we're going to make a decision to go forward. So that's why success is predictable. That's why success is absolutely predictable. That's why stereotypes exist, because your personality is made up of your personal reality, and your memory is your personal reality. And that personal reality is the only place you can go make your future, which is why it's predictable, and it creates your personality. So when I say 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are from yesterday, it's because you're doing everything the same. How many of you woke up on the same side of the bed? How many of you woke up in the same house? How many of you woke up and went to the bathroom the same way? At what point during this day so far did you absolutely have the dreams of your new future? Not just write them down. How many of you felt them physically? How many of you felt them emotionally? How many actually you could taste the success? You would be doing things different. How many of you felt the clothes that you want? How many of you felt the house that you're going to be living in? How many of you felt the car that you're going to be driving? Absolutely emotionally, that if I gave you an fMRI, I could see your brain change. That's why we have the same 90% every day, because we're not willing to sit quietly. How do you change this, Nano? You sit quietly. How do you have 11-page download? How do you have a 21-page download after La Jolla? How do you have an 11-page and then another 3 pages, 14-page download? Because you sat quietly somewhere and you let the stuff pour out of you. You couldn't do that if you were having your old thoughts. Nano doesn't journal. Been doing it since June. So in 6 months, you were able to rewrite your success. You were able to rewrite your level of confidence, a level of joy, where you're going to get to in life. You were able to reprogram the destiny you were destined for. The answer to that is yes. That's why you're an outlier. That's why people are looking at you going, how did you get there? That's why people give you recognition and put you on papers. They're building a statue to you. Every time you're in a meme that says, these guys, chairman, whatever, are doing something, that's a statue to you. Why are they building a statue to you? Because you hit their level of success. Your life may be a shitstorm, but in their eyes, you've reached success. So we're going to build a statue to you. That's why it might be a false idol. How many of us believe our own press? Why would I be doing a call in the morning if that's where people ask the question? I get asked this all the time, and I can hear the mumbles in the shadows in the audience seats, right? Where people go, well, if he's a 3-time #1 bestseller on Amazon, and if he stood on stage in 30 countries, been translated into over 40 languages, his methods of training and teaching have helped companies do combined over $2 billion in sales. Why is he giving away this stuff in the morning? Because I can. I get to. So, got you a little warm, huh? Got the blood going?
That was honestly like so amazing, because you know I'm usually at the gym and I'm always taking notes, and I've been doing what you say, you know, ask questions, and you actually answered my next question, which was, let me just go back to my notes to make sure. It was what you were talking about Socrates, and you were talking about stepping into the unknown. And my question was, first I wrote an affirmation. I wrote, why am I so good at stepping into the unknown? But then my question to you was, why is it so important to step into the unknown? And you kind of answered my question with your response, because, you know, like you said, 90% of our thoughts are from yesterday, because you're still doing the same things every day. You're not doing things differently. And the moment you start to change the way you do things, your thoughts will start to change. And instead of it 90%, now it'll be 80%, 70%, 60%. So that's why it's so important to step into the unknown, because it'll change your way of thinking. If I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right, because anything you say is right. My job is to say, how do we adjust the sail of that rightness? So here's my point. We have on average 3,000 to 5,000 new thoughts a day. Let's say 10,000 new thoughts a day. You're always going to have 10,000 new thoughts a day, because the traffic's going to be different. The bus is going to be different. Nothing is ever the same. This moment is the only time in the history of the universe, in the millions and billions and billions of years, this is the only time this moment will ever exist. This is the only time this moment will ever exist. In this moment, do you choose joy or do you choose misery? Most people say, I choose joy. Then get your butt into joy. Stop living in misery. My point is this. So how do we up our control? How do we up our ante? We're going to still have the same 10,000 thoughts. How do we slow down the others? How do we stop it? Meditation. What if you only had 60,000 thoughts a day? Man, that's 30,000 to the plus. How many of you would like a $30,000 add to your bank account? Imagine if every thought that you're having that's repetitive, that every time you make $1, you lose $1. You lose $1.50. You know, see, that's why sometimes we struggle. The idea of sustained thought is the most difficult thing for man to do, or woman, but it's the most difficult thing for people to do, the idea of sustained thought. So this idea that you're going to sustain the ability to step into your goal, to step into your, you constantly have to keep asking the question, we call it monitoring your success. That's why I ask my students, some of you know this, I ask my students, you need to send me a check-in every hour. I have people who send me, dozens of people who send me a Y or an N every hour. Why do they send me a Y or an N every hour? Yes, I was focused on my goal. I was 51% of the time, 31 minutes of the last hour, I was in my zone. I was in my belief. Even if I was in the world of poop, I wound up saying that this is my poop. This is my world of poop. I can live with this. 31 minutes out of every hour, if you are in sync with your joy. 31 seconds out of every 60 seconds. If you decide you're going to be in your joy, guess what's going to happen? People are going to flock to you. People are going to show up by the dozens, by the thousands to join your organization. Why? Because they want what you got. They don't know how you do it. You're not sure how you do it. But if they see somebody like you, like me, a chucklehead like me that can do it, people line up to go, I want to do what you're doing, because if you can do it, I can do it better. And I'm like, you are so correct. And then my responsibility is to slow down what they're doing. Do less so you can have so much more. And what you're doing, Nano, when you meditate, when you tell people you should journal, and everybody's like, yo, man, that's facts. Yo, dude, that's facts. I should journal. I'm going to journal. Yo, bro, let's kill it. Oh, my gosh. Everything you just said up to the point to where you said, let's kill it, you just killed it. Let's crush it. Who wants to crush anything? Imagine if your dreams were little babies. Would you really want to crush it? Would you really want to put them in a grinder? That's what your dreams are. They're little babies. And every time you open your mouth, you wind up stalling their growth. When we have a conversation with ourselves, what if we were to do some self-introspection? How am I feeling in this moment? Everybody do me a favor. Just stop for a second, take a big breath, get focused. If you're sitting down, I want you to feel the chair on your butt. I'm just going to look at Fanny. Go ahead, Fanny, close your eyes. I want you to feel the headphones on your ears. I want you to feel the pen in your hand. I want you to feel the hair on your head. Now, some of y'all are bald and you're like, what? You follow me? Can you feel the hair on your head? This might be one of the first times you've ever actually become aware of you. Yeah, Ashley, sometimes you do. That's because that's the body saying, you're amazing. You're this incredible creation that's come from nowhere to now here. And from nowhere to now here, you get to change the universe, starting with your own. The universe you get to change. Not just your little spot on the planet, the universe. Your vibration exudes energy, exudes love, exudes joy. You get to influence the world with your vibration because your vibration is still going out. From the moment you were born, the first cry you ever let out is still expanding out into the universe. If we had the way to travel faster than the speed of light, we could take a telescope out and look back to the moment you were born. People will see that moment that you were born and go, oh my gosh, look at this genius that just landed on that planet. And you're sitting there listening to somebody else's story that you're not good enough? Come on. Why give them that credibility? Why give them that credence over you? Believe in but if you have faith, then God doesn't make no junk. God don't make no junk. He looked at the earth, he made the earth, and he looked at it and he said, what? It is good. That means you too. So, does that help, Nana?
Yes, it does, Sean. It does. Helps a lot.
So, let people hear from your understanding. What did you learn? What did you like about this little conversation? Because you're the one that's, like it or not, you're the one leading this pack. You're the one influencing them. Sucks to be you. I love that you come here. I love that you come here to sit and have a conversation with me. This is the idea. This is the epitome of a true leader, folks. You guys know how amazing he is, what he's doing. Yet he is constantly and continually sharpening his saw. He wants to get better. Yes, he wants to get better for him, but he happens to be in a business that if he gets better, the world gets better. This is done very self-fully and selfishly so that he can be more self-full to give you everything he has. I needed you to all hear that because he has access to me. Why does he deserve my time? Because he sits here in an open forum and asks questions. He leads by example. So Nano, what did you pick up from this little dialogue? What was it that hit you so that it gives people courage to know that they're on a similar path as you?
Yeah, well, you had a lot of things. First off, thank you for what you said. I appreciate that. But what really hit me was what you were talking about when I first asked you the question about the thoughts and how 90% of them are from yesterday. How you said that, we got to change the things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis in order for our thoughts to change. And that's definitely one thing I learned that because I noticed that the reason why my thoughts stay consistent from yesterday is because I'm still doing a lot of the things that I was doing before. So I know I have to change those things moving forward. Even though I'm constantly growing, I got to be consistently stepping into the unknown every single day so that my thoughts and I can reach new levels of unknown fields, because that's the goal. We want to step into the field of infinite possibilities. So every day we must be stepping into new unknown fields. So that's one thing I learned. One thing I loved was what you said about this is the only time this moment will ever exist. And it's so true. Sometimes we get so caught up in all the things that are happening, but in reality, we got to be present in the moment and be grateful for what's happening, because like you said, this moment will never exist ever again. And I'm just grateful that, I get to jump on these calls with you every single morning, Monday through Sunday. And, and it's just good that I have someone to pour into me, because, I pour into so many and I'm grateful for it and I get to. But it's also an amazing feeling when I have such an amazing mentor like yourself that, gets to pour into me as well. So I'm grateful for this moment for sure.
Well, and you said it there. Sometimes people haven't given enough space to let us pour into them, and that gets exhausting. I can't push a rope. I decided a long time ago, growing up on the farm, pushing ropes don't work. Pulling them does, letting them tie onto you does. I'll pull them stuck out of the mud, but I can't push you out of the mud. So I appreciate you, again, leading by example. Now, here's the thing, folks. I need you to understand this. This is since June. We haven't even known each other a year yet. Now, we've known each other for thousands of eons, because we can't have a 54-year-old white guy with this amazing young soul who's not like me, not my age. We didn't grow up together. We didn't share the hood together. The fact that we could have this conversation is because we've known each other. We're of a psychographic, not a demographic. People out there just like this relationship that allows you to be able to listen. Very few of you all look like me. Very few of you sound like me. But why are we all having this conversation together? Because somebody sent me a message the other day, and they said, now I know why I follow you. Now I know why I hang out with you. You're just love. I thought that was the greatest compliment. I mean, that's one of the greatest compliments. And it wasn't a passing comment, but it was a very simple comment that hit me hard. Why? Because that's what I do. I want to love the world. So thank you, Nano, for following through on that as well. All right, let's go. You bet. Thank you. A couple more, and then you're going to go hear me yell at Mason again. Oh, my back. So we got Bree on line 3. Go ahead, Bree.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I have been kind of listening to your calls for a while. Shout out to Nano for kind of bringing you on his calls, because that was how I got exposed to your knowledge and your wisdom. And one thing that I really appreciated what you said today was the comment that you made about people being, what did you say, the first in their families to graduate.
Right.
And that really spoke to me, because I am I was the first in my family to graduate with a bachelor's degree. And when I graduated, I decided to go ahead and pursue a master's degree. And I thought that it was something that I wanted, because I've always had this ambition to help people. I actually got a word from the Heavenly Father back when I was 14. I'm 24 now. And so for the past 10 years, I've had this vision to open an organization to give back to kids in the community. I'm also from Chicago. And so knowing the history of Chicago, there's a great need for that organization to give back to the community and kind of spread love for the kids in the communities. And so I thought that going and getting my master's degree in the field of psychology would help me with that. And when I started this business back in August, so it's been close to 5 months now, started in August, I actually made the decision at the end of September that I was going to stop, and I didn't have a specific word for it until I hopped on your calls, but I was going to stop doing what other people wanted me to do, or what I thought that was best, and would be accepted by other people, and to follow my own dream. And so just hearing the confirmation even this morning, about stopping that addiction to approval and fulfilling your purpose every single day really just spoke to me and touched me, and just motivated me to continue on this journey, because I also think that if I was the first to graduate and I was blessed to open up that avenue for my cousins and my brother, then I'm also able to start a business, because nobody in my family has ever been an entrepreneur before. And so if I'm able to do that, then I'm able to do this. And this is something that's true to my heart. And so I thank you so much for kind of confirming what what I've kind of been going through and thinking of mentally. So I just appreciate you and your calls and the wisdom that you give all of us each and every day. It's definitely appreciated.
Well, I mean, thank you, Bree. I appreciate that. And know this, you are making the world a better place, and your decisions, when you step out, you do become a target. You are breaking the history that everybody thinks of you and where you should be and what you should do, right? So I applaud you for having the courage to do that. Thank you for being a powerful, strong human being. And thank you for still being able to do that in a woman's body, because of all of the prejudices and everything else that goes around that. You've not only got to look sharp, you've got to play sharp, you've got to act sharp, and then you've still got to be a woman. It's like you've got this double-edged sword that that you're dealing with on a daily basis. And thank you learning how to use that and not cut yourself with it. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Sending love all the way from Joplin, Missouri, man. I definitely love you, and am definitely going to share some more of your value with everyone around me. So I definitely appreciate you, man.
Yeah, baby. I love you. Thank you so much. Oh, that's so cool. We've got Naomi on line 4. Naomi, tell us your question or comment.
My comment, I think, would be I came late on this call, but I'm so happy I did, because just now with this call, I realized 2 majorly important things. So first, I knew this about me. I find meditation in different things. So not just in literal meditation of being still. I also find meditation in sitting still and speaking my thoughts. And I actually did this the last 2 days. I recorded myself just speaking of what was literally on my mind in that moment. And there were so many thoughts, because with Neno mentioned the 90% of thoughts are from yesterday. And while I was doing that, there were so many thoughts coming up in that moment. And I was really thinking, like, I was literally creating a whole new universe in my brain while I was recording myself. And it's crazy because I could do it for hours. Like, I think I recorded like 20-minute videos where I had to stop myself. Well, I stopped myself because I was like, okay, cool, let me look at it kind of thing. But I realized I could literally do it for hours. And that was kind of crazy to me and empowering in the same moment. Because I know that with that, I'll also manifest it at the same time. And also, yeah, that's what I realized just now through this comment and through this call. And also that I've never really liked a daily routine or a very scheduled day-to-day. And I've always trying to figure out why I am like that. I mean, I know I'm free-spirited and you know, I struggle with just doing the same things every day. But now with what you said, that, you know, stepping into the unknown, I think that is one thing that is why I don't like the schedule. But now this call kind of made me think about setting targets to a schedule of how to step into the unknown daily. I don't know if that makes any sense right now, but
It does.
okay.
So tell me, because you've advanced, right? You've taken the step to listen. If everybody sat down and recorded their conversations, what if you had access? Listen carefully. What if you had access to the oracle of everything? Listen carefully. What if you had access to the oracle of everything? Everything you want is already inside of you. If we stop the distractions, it allows us to have traction. And we can't say, I'm distracted, because we've never had traction. You've not known what it is. Doing those little 20-minute videos has given you a whole new understanding. You haven't done that in your entire life, and now all of a sudden you've done 40 minutes of it, 2 hours of it, however much, and we will find a way to go, well, I gotta step out and go busy. I would say go do it for a day. Take a break, because it is exhausting. It is amazing how the brain starts to go just off on its own tangent. And you're starting, sometimes it gets us scared, because it's like, oh my gosh, I can actually do all of this. My body's vibrating at such a high vibration right now because I'm in flow. And when you get in flow and you start to have that, don't stop.
No, I don't stop. When I feel like that, I can't stop. Like I literally can't. I can't stop myself.
You can't, no, because that's the inner you. That's the heart finally going, I'm free.
Yeah.
And the brain's like, wait a minute, what did I miss? The brain's off at lunch eating in the corner going, what the hell's going on out there?
Literally.
So I applaud you for that. So here's what I'm going to suggest. Here's what I'm going to ask you. Can you find a way today to give yourself a little reward for doing that? Because all too often we're waiting on the big thing to happen to give us our Lamborghini or our new house or whatever. Can you go give yourself a little reward, a piece of cake, a cup of coffee, have them put a shot of butterscotch in it, just something that says, that right there is for my recording the videos. I am rewarding myself now. I believe that what I am doing is so important that I need the recognition of my own self to say, thank you for taking control. And the heart goes, oh, you love me.
I will. I actually can't wait to do it later. I'm doing it later again. And I'm looking forward to it already. It's so crazy. But yeah, I just felt like sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. This is what happens when we change the way we look at things. The things we look at change. How cool is that? Awesome sauce. So let's see here. Let's go to real quick. Rhonda, I see your hands up. You got anything you want to share? Or was that just, you hit that by mistake?
And no, I didn't have a whole lot to share. Just kind of a nice recap of everything you keep telling us. And I need these so much. I don't care how many times I talk to Sean, and I'll pray for Sean. He has to talk to me all the time. I don't let a day go by without some good mentoring one-on-one with Sean. But just a good recap. And the questions that we don't ask, opposed to the questions we do ask. It's like a big face palm. I get a big face palm moment all the time, because I'm thinking, golly, there's so much better. There's so many better questions I can ask. And just like Naomi said, taking the time to just sit with yourself. And for me, it's getting a download and hearing the Lord speak to me, and how I need to handle things, and what I need to do, and where I need to go, as opposed to a written agenda or a list. And there's nothing wrong with an agenda or a list, but some of the things I took away today is my four different topics or questions, rewards, because I don't do that enough. A lot of women probably don't do that enough. Space and time and perspective. And I'm getting up now even earlier in the mornings to make sure I have room for this. And it's just amazing what comes to me when I do that. And then I'll get to listen to all y'all. I get to listen to Sean, and I get to listen to every one of y'all and the input. And the vibration has changed around me. Things are different around me. And it's easier in some places, and it's a little more challenging in others, which is good. I like the challenge. But you guys push me, and you younger ones, and I'm not that old, but I'm a lot older than y'all are. I'm old enough to be y'all's mamas. Y'all push me into a different thinking. And I talked to a couple people that have been on this phone call before, and sometimes it's hard, it's challenging for us to be around younger people because the thinking is so different, but I love it. I love it. I learn so much from y'all. And when y'all speak out and y'all ask questions and y'all tell me what you've learned and what you like, tell me, like y'all on my call. Y'all know what I mean. I think y'all are talking to me. When y'all speak on this call, you expand my brain and then you become part of my world and you become part of the answers I need. And it's just a big, huge thank you for everyone showing up and speaking into me and giving me some of your energy. Just, man, y'all set my heart on fire. I just love it. Y'all are just amazing, every one of y'all. And I got to shout out to one person. Do you go by Ray or Raymond?
Ray Barbuto.
You can
Ray.
always Ray.
Okay, Ray, your accent just tickles me to the bones. I love it. I love that you're on these calls. I don't know you, but I'm getting to know you, and I appreciate you sitting here and the energy you have. I feel you. I feel you. Big hugs
Okay.
from Texas.
Well, coming from Boston, remember, it's where it all began.
Well, I love y'all. Thanks, Sean, for always letting
Thank
me
you.
have a little bit of input.
Thank you, Rhonda. Appreciate you sharing my love. We've got Bonavi on line 6. Bonavi, go ahead.
Hello, Sean.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, Sean?
Outstanding.
That's great. Sean, I don't have any question, but I just want to thank you again and to say this is me applying the knowledge that I've been getting from you by doing something that I'm not comfortable doing, like talking in front of many people. So I'm forcing myself to do this.
Awesome.
So thank you for giving me the
Let's throw
opportunity.
some hearts up and love for Bonavi, because that public speaking is the biggest thing. If we get over that, if we get through that, if we get to, listen, the only difference between the non-public speaker and the public speaker, we all have butterflies. We all have butterflies in our stomach. The only difference is we've learned to make them fly in formation. You've heard that expression before. So congratulations on doing that. I'm so proud of you.
Thanks so much, Sean. Thank you so much.
This is what changes happen. This is when we believe in the faith of ourselves. This is when we believe we can step out in an environment, right? For somebody to do something that's so scary in front of a huge audience, it's got to be a safe place, isn't it? Even though they can be scared to death, it can still be a safe place. So thank you, Bonavi, for stepping up and doing that, being a perfect example of facing the fear and doing it anyway. Love you, brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I love what we get to do together. So let's see. We've got Laura on line 3. Laura.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for this calls. I actually met Nano randomly. I don't know if he remembers me, but I already told him how much I appreciate him. But anyway, so this past week has been crazy because I've been listening to the recordings and it has touched me in like the perfect moment in my life. So I'm just grateful for it. But today, especially with the questions, I'm getting to realize how much I question things, and I never thought of maybe that's just the way that I guess process information. So that was just kind of crazy. And I guess my question is, what books can I read or like audios, or how can I study more so I can learn to, I guess, ask better questions, if that makes sense.
So your question. So ask your question in just a different way. Use some different words. Say it one more time.
What books or audios or what can I study so that I can ask better questions?
So, how to win friends, influence people, right?
Okay.
The ability to have a conversation. Sometimes we have to reprimand people for their actions. Meaning when people aren't doing the thing. When people say I want to be rich, but they're watching Netflix, you know, from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. We have to kind of shock them out of that if we're going to build a business together. So it teaches you how to wrap a conversation in there, how to give praise, give them the little slap on the back, and then give praise again. So it teaches you the formula for having a conversation, moving people into action. Wallace D. Wattles' book, Science of Getting Rich. That's another thing. It's not about doing certain things. It's about doing things in a certain way. And then just do this, Laura. When you're listening to somebody, if you were to do forensic analysis, one of the things that I've become brilliant at in the industrial world is forensic analysis. People bring me a box of parts and they tell me, why did this fail? The equipment will always tell me why it failed. Everything will always tell you why it failed. The challenge is that we get emotional in our understanding of why people fail, and they're telling us exactly why they're failing, why they're stuck, why they're stalled at where they're at. We just aren't listening because we're letting their failure run down across the floor and up our leg and trigger our own failure mechanisms. What I'm going to ask you to do is when you sit with people, think of what is the question that could have been asked for them to give you that answer, even in just general dialogue. Right? So say something to me, just randomly. Give me a fact. Give me something you talked about yesterday. Just give me a sentence that maybe you use sometime.
Financial freedom.
So my brain instantly goes to, what is the question that ran to her head that caused her to ask financial freedom? What financial freedom has such a depth and dialogue. See, and I'm doing this in between the words you're already saying. This is what's called active listening. So you say financial freedom. All of a sudden, does that mean that she has financial freedom? What does she know about financial freedom? So I would ask you then in that conversation going, you know what? Some of our top income earners wanted financial freedom as one of their goals as well. Tell me what you see. Because I don't want to ask you, so tell me what you think about financial freedom. Well, I ain't got it, so now you're questioning me, you're challenging me. I want to compare you. I'll ask you a question that will allow you to compare yourself to the good side of that statement. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As opposed to beating you up going, oh, so you don't have financial freedoms? You should join me. You should be doing what I'm doing. It's like, ah, crap. See, there you go again. I can never win. So see if you can ask the question that produced the statement, because everybody is giving an answer to a question, aren't they? In a dialogue, all of the things I'm saying, all of the facts I'm saying are in the answer to a question you posed to me. The challenge is most people don't realize that every conversation is the answer to a question. Oh, we need to go to the movies tonight. That answered the question, what should we do tonight? And nobody asked it, but it operates at a subconscious level. Does that make sense, Laura?
It does. Thank you so much.
You bet.
It's crazy because yesterday I was kind of practicing some of the things that I've learned in the calls, and I was sitting with someone and I was just listening. I was asking questions and listening, but then today I realized why things went down the way they did, because she triggered things in me, and then I got emotional. So, hi.
There's Mason. See, brother. Love you, man. Right there. Mason, get up!
I just love you. But yeah, so I just got emotional, and then I started talking, and then she just wasn't talking at all. So yeah, this helps a lot. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Now, Laura, I need you to hear this. The answer I shared with you, you know where that was already? Inside.
In the conversation. Mm-hmm.
All of the answers I gave you were inside of you, because when I said, does that make sense? You said yes. You finally were able to put it into I helped you with the syntax, how to put it in order. But any answer I give you, if it makes sense, it had to be where? It always had to be in. So I want you. I want this because I don't want people saying, "Oh my gosh, he's amazing." I am pretty darn good. I'll take that. I'll accept that. But what makes me good is making you remember how good you are. That's maybe what I do better than most anybody else on the planet. There's other people who do it as well. They probably don't do it better. But I remind you how good you are. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. I needed to hear that.
I love that smile. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you too. Yay! How could you get this? Is like, who wouldn't want to wake up for this? Well, there you go, folks. Another amazing day, another amazing dialogue of conversation. And you know what? I appreciate you all so much. You inspire me. And I just love how we crossed the oceans to Naomi in London, to Fanny down in I think they're in Panama. It's an amazing conversation. This is a global call. Why? Because you decide to show up. I appreciate you so much. I'm Sean Murphy, founder of Mental Profits. Make sure you go to the YouTube channel. Now I'm going to give you a little selfless plug. Go to the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, follow. And I love how people are sharing out the YouTube links. You make me so happy and so proud. And you make my son Mason laugh because people will say again to him today, "Oh, I didn't hear your dad yell at you this morning." That's why I kind of did that. For all of Mason's friends who are following, you guys are awesome. I'm Sean Murphy, founder of Mental Profits. I'll see y'all where? At the next event. Till then, in the words of my dear friend Leslie Heber, go be good to yourself. Bye for now. Say bye to each other.
Have a blessed day.
Bye, guys.
See y'all.
Y'all be wonderful to everyone.
Be well, everyone.
Good morning, y'all. Be safe.
How cool is that? I'll be good. Bye for now.
God bless you all.
Bye, y'all. Have a good one.
I appreciate y'all.
Yay.
Thank you.
Love you, Misfits family.
There you
Love
go.
y'all.